Even as you see those images on your screen, I will be engaging the Mathera Member of Parliament, Honorable Rigathi Gachagua. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we're here to remember him. We're here for you to share those days, you know, that you served under him and whom Moi was for you. And I'd like us to start from those days when you were a student leader at the University of Nairobi.
Yes. Thank you very much, Grace, for giving me this opportunity to talk about Mzee Moi. I think this is the best thing that could ever happen to me, to be able to talk about him, because he was a father, he was a mentor, he was a great leader. And as we went to bury him on Wednesday, we have extremely fond memories of Mzee Daniel Teacher Arap Moi. I met Mzee Daniel Teacher Arap Moi way back in 1986. When I was at the University of Nairobi, I was a student leader. I was chairman of the Nyeri University Students Association. And Mzee used to hold delegations to interact with students and share with them and you know, have a good time with them. And we went for a delegation at Cabinet Gardens to see him one evening at 4 p.m. And retired President Mwai Kibaki was there. He was the vice president. We had the member of parliament for Madeira, my predecessor, Matua Mai. We had a member of parliament for Nyeri Town, then Derito Githua. And as the leader, I made a speech, and Mzee was very impressed. And I think he must have noticed some leadership qualities in me. And after the ceremony, he invited me to the house with the vice president, then Mwai Kibaki and the other leaders. We shared a meal, and he said, "Young man, I like the way you put things, and I think I see some leadership in you. Can you come and see me tomorrow morning?" And the following morning, I went to State House. I found I was being awaited for. I walked from the university, didn't have a car or anything. And at the gate, people were asking, "Who is this?" And then my name was there. He had already remembered to give my name there at the gate. I was ushered in, and we had a lengthy chat about Kenya, about young people, about education. He wanted to know about me, my parents, and everything. And from there, we struck a good rapport. And he asked me every 2 weeks to come in and have a chat. And we continued that way, and we developed a very strong friendship. And he valued my thinking, and he would call me from time to time just to ask me about topical issues, what are people saying. And I remember in 1987, when he was going for heads of states and government conference in Vancouver, Canada, for the Commonwealth, he carried me along for 10 days. Wow. And it was good boarding. And finally, when I graduated in 1988, he called me and said, "I'd like you to join my government as an administrative officer in my office." And I joined government in Harambee House. And from there, he told me we'll be talking every 2 weeks, because Mzee Moi had a very, very unique way of governance. He had the formal contacts in government, the provincial commissioners, commissioner of police, director of CID, director of intelligence. Then he had another level of junior officers he was talking to directly. And then he had also one NG he used to talk directly. The late president had real-time information about this country.
And let me just cut you short, because I want to take you back to that first encounter with him. My goodness, it was rare, I believe.
Yes, it was.
What did it mean to you? I mean, the president pointing me out and sharing a meal with me, inviting me to State House the following day.
It was overwhelming. The humility of President Moi, it's something we are not able to talk about. Here is the President of the Republic of Kenya. This is just a student from the University of Nairobi, from a poor background, from somewhere in Herega village, a fellow who is known by nobody. He's here with the President of the Republic of Kenya, having a meal, and he made us feel comfortable. In fact, we had problem with the forks and knives. He said, "No, forget. Kula tuna mkono," you know, because we were trying to get chicken, and you know, it was jumping from the plate, and he could see we are struggling because there was tension. And he made me feel comfortable. He said, "No, young man, it's okay. You know, I'm your father. Let's have a discussion." He was a humble man, and he made somebody feel very comfortable in his presence. And as the years went by, you know, we got very comfortable with him, and we became very close. And he was also very humorous. He had many jokes, and he would make somebody really feel like another human being. This is the president, you're just here, but he will really make you feel very humane. So the story of Moi is a big story. You know, some of us are what we are today because of him. He mentored me as a young person and introduced me into leadership. You know, so today, even I do what I am doing, I really borrow from him. This man would wake up at 5 a.m. and pray. And then he would start calls from 5:30 across the country. By the time he gets on his desk by 7, the man is a walking box of information. He knows everything, the whole country. And that is how you will not cheat Moi. People would brief him in the morning and somebody loses his job at 1 o'clock because he's cross-checking information. He never believed in one source of information. But the beauty about President Moi, if he trusted you completely. And he would only trust you if you don't cheat him. And if you cheat him and he gets to know, he was very furious, and he would face it. And that's how you find people who are very close to him along the way they fell out. As long as you are truthful to President Moi, as long as you told him as it is, you remain his friend. That is how I was able to stay with him for 14 years, and until his sickness and death, we've remained friends and close because I told him the truth as it is. Sometimes it was bitter truth. I remember in 1990, he posted me somewhere in Kirinyaga to handle the political situation. We had a big conflict between Njiro and Juno, and he wanted me to handle it, and I was taking instructions directly from him on how to manage the situation. And he called me and said, I would like you to give me an honest opinion. There is this clamor for multipartyism, and I hear people are very unhappy. What is the position? Can you give me as it is? And I told him, it is true. Kenyans are wary of the one-party system. They feel they have been pushed too much, and they are beginning to get very rebellious. They are getting unhappy with you, Mzee, and your government. I think it is true. We need to change tact. I think you need to accede to these demands. I think you need to look at it in a dignified manner and see how to manage it. He said, it's true. I agree with you. I have the same information. I wanted to hear from an ordinary officer, not the people top here who are telling me, I have this information, we'll manage it. And take it from me, it will be well. And after some time, he called a meeting in Kasarani. The delegates could not, the Kano delegates could hear none of it. They wanted one-party state. And at the end of the conference, he said, no. I think the world is changing. We need to move from single party to multipartyism. We need to repeal Section 2A and move on because this is our country and we can't have a country where everybody is unhappy. And he convinced the delegates. Section 2A was repealed. He ushered in multipartyism and managed it well. And when history books are written, I think one of the greatest credits that will go to President Moi was his ability to change from one-party system to multi-party democracy, you know, because this one-party system was everywhere in Africa. And he read the signs of the time, and he moved on with the times, and moved from one-party state to multi-party democracy, and managed it, and indeed went ahead to win the elections. I remember, because I was in Kirinyaga then, he said, we have to win this election. And he formed a small team. I was one of them, about 8 guys, called us to the office of the president and put us under Philip Mbithi. He was the head of the civil service and secretary to the cabinet. And I said, this is my task force, this is my core team. We must win this election. We must change tact. We must work on it. And we sat there 1991, 1992, and we worked on it, and he went ahead to win the first multi-party, general elections with an overwhelming majority. I remember he had 1.9 votes against Kenneth Matiba 1.4. He beat them by 500,000 votes. And he managed the country well. He was able to adjust to the times and move on. And the beauty about President Moi, many people say many things. He was a very tolerant man. He was very forgiving. He had a very big heart. He had a good ear. He would sit and listen, He is president, and he would sit and listen for 20 minutes without saying anything. And he also valued counsel from many different people. He would have delegations for elders and listen to them very patiently. He would listen to women leaders. He would listen to young people like ourselves. And at the head of it all, he would make an informed decision by listening to people. a picture may have been painted that he was intolerant. Probably for what he lacked in terms of education, he made up for it. He would, have an image like a tough guy out there, but he had a good soul. He had a very soft heart. Inwardly, in meetings, he was a very soft guy. He would listen and listen patiently. He would ask questions. He would take suggestions. He would incorporate all that and make a very informed decision. And above all, humility. And I must say humility is a virtue second to none. This is something that President Moi taught us, and those of us who are students, those of us he mentored into leadership, to celebrate his death, we must remain very humble. We must be tolerant. We must be available to listen to people and accept criticism done in a positive manner and take ideas and take it that you don't know everything. Be able to listen to everybody, to Mama Mboga, to that border guy, to the church leaders. And that is what Moi taught us, to listen to all sheets of opinion and make an informed decision. And that is why he was able to rule this country for 24 years without a problem, And I know many people say many things, but when I look back, the legacy that the President Moi left this country, he left a united and cohesive nation. He handed over to Mwai Kibaki a country that is one, a country that is not divided. And that is a big legacy. And I think we need to build on that and build on that until we can be able to achieve great heights of prosperity as we move on.
Now, we'll be talking more about Mzee Moi and his leadership, but I want to get a bit personal, if you would allow me, because this man has been termed as a time-conscious man.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I must say I admire about him. So did you ever at one point, be on the spot, like get late for meetings with him, and what was the consequence?
Let me tell you, President Moi, his argument was very simple. Why would he be late for a meeting? The president could not be late for a meeting because he was the topmost man in the country, so nobody could delay him for an appointment. So he was always on time. He would wake up on time. He would keep time. He would keep very strict schedules. And those of us who worked around him learned that from him. Initially, we had problems. He would say, come here at 7, you are arriving at 7:30. But over time, those of us who had the privilege to work with President Moi, I met him every 2 weeks. For those 14 years, we had a conversation every 2 weeks. He said, come in, we have a discussion. Wherever he was, unless he was out of the country, come to Kabra, come to Kabarnet Gardens, come to State House Nakuru, come to State House, wherever he was, every 2 weeks, we would have a conversation. The man was time conscious. He kept time. And by keeping time, he brought discipline in government. You start from the top.
Yes.
Everybody else followed suit.
Sure.
And things were orderly. All his functions, they were meticulously planned, because from the man himself, once he keeps time, everything else flows. And he was very unforgiving to people who could not keep time. He wouldn't understand, if he is the president of the Republic of Kenya, the senior most man in the country with enormous responsibilities on his shoulders, and he is keeping time. You will say, who are you? Really, you are just a fellow there as junior government functionary, and you are pretending to be so busy, you have so many things, you can't keep time. And this is man, he's head of state, he's head of government, he's commander-in-chief of the armed forces, he's looking at all, 36 million Kenyans then, he's looking at foreign affairs, he's looking at the entire picture, and he would keep time. So everybody else in his government followed suit. So he injected discipline in government, And I want to say, I have seen things that I don't think they would happen in his time. Once he made a pronouncement, there were people just behind him. The PS in charge of internal security or his designated appointee would be taking notes. Immediately after the presidential pronouncement in a meeting, there will be a follow-up. There will be letters. Today, at this function, at this time, the president directed as follows. A, B, C, D, can it happen within this time? That was it.
And that's an order.
That was it. I find people now in government, I can't believe it. On 1st of June last year, President Kenyatta, our president, gave directions in Narok that government people, both county and national, must clear pending bills, all of them. Up to now, most of them have not been cleared. I can't understand where government functionaries are there, the president, commander-in-chief, the men entrusted with running this country has made public pronouncement. It is incumbent upon the government people, the government functionaries, to dignify that office. And the way to dignify that office is that once the president has made a pronouncement in public, it must happen because it should happen. Because that is the way we dignify that office as symbol of authority, so that everybody knows that anything that comes from that office is, by a matter of fact, actually indeed law, once it is said. So I want to say that the President Moi, set very high standards for governance and for efficiency and discipline in government.